Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a match preview show as Aston Villa travel to Ipswich on Sunday live on Sky Sports. 2 o'clock kickoff, I believe. I said that without actually knowing, but I think it is, yes, a 2 o'clock kickoff. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by my Sky Sports News colleague, David Reid, Villa fan as well, of course, TV personality to look through or look forward to the Ipswich. I threw myself off by calling you a TV personality, Dave. Dave, how are you?
No one's ever called me that.
Oh, well, I felt it was justified. I felt like he deserved it, but it did put me off my spiel.
TV idiot. Usually, that's what people usually say.
No. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. What's been going on this week? It's actually been a fairly quiet week for me. Not
That's
too
not
much.
true, is it? That's not true because I asked you to do a show and you were out drinking. So.
Well, no, that suggests it was a heavy night. It was concluded at a sensible hour. So
has to be for you nowadays, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah. I was back home at a very reasonable hour in time for bedtime. So,
whose bedtime? Yours or Teddy's?
Not mine. No, very much Teddy's. Yeah, very much.
That's good. That's good. How is young Teddy?
Yeah, he's all right, progressing, which is good. If people have listened to the previous one, I said that he was suffering with a milk intolerance, so that is still the case. But we've got various different appointments going backwards and forwards to try and help him with different things. So he's on the right track at the moment, which is good.
Good, excellent to hear, David. I'm really pleased about that. Still yet to meet him, but I'm sure we'll get that in the books very soon if you ever make a triumphant return to the Midlands, David. Looking forward to the game on Sunday. Obviously, live on Sky. If you're not going to the game, it's an interesting one. I'm excited to see Ipswich play. Actually, I watched them on day one, but I've not seen them live again since. But I know they haven't got off to a flying start, but I still look at it as being a bit like Leicester. A solid start for Leicester, further out Ipswich.
Yes, I think at the start of the season, Ipswich were my pick of the three promoted sides to stay up. I like what they did in the summer transfer window, and I still think even now they're probably the best equipped of all the three promoted sides to stay up. I think it's hard to read a little bit how Ipswich have done this season. They had the two very tough games to start in Liverpool and Manchester City, and then have managed to gain 3 draws. I think you can almost wipe off the Manchester City and Liverpool results and really judge them on those 3 draws. And I think there has been an improvement in performance during those games, or certainly good signs that Ipswich are going to be capable of staying in the Premier League. I do think they were a little bit fortunate to get the point against Southampton. There was obviously the deflected strike from Sam Morsey that went in at the end. I think Southampton will look back on that and think they deserved to win that, and they probably did deserve to win that. So I think they were a little bit fortunate on that front. But I think some of their numbers in that Southampton game were a vast improvement on what they've been showing so far in the Premier League. So I think Kieran McKenna will be looking at those and taking a little bit of heart from those. And they're going to be dangerous at home. They're going to be hard to play against in front of that crowd. And I think Villa have to be ready for that.
Yeah, I think in the Liverpool game, which I watched 90 minutes of, and the Manchester City game, just the highlights, they had moments in those games, which is probably all you can ask for. I think the Liverpool game in particular, they went out with a high tempo, pressing Liverpool a lot, and they kind of ran out of steam a little bit after the hour, but that's to be expected. It was the first game back in the Premier League, the first game in the Premier League for a number of players. I wonder, Villa and Liverpool are teams of a similar level. I wonder if they've learned from that game, and maybe they won't come out and press Villa initially, won't try and get up off to that fast start, because they'll have looked at Villa Ipswich and they'll think there's probably a goal in this game for us. If we can keep it tight in the beginning and be the first ones to score, if we can get ourselves ahead, we'll be in a decent place. But I suppose also on the flip side, Villa have shown in recent weeks that very good at coming from behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from Ipswich's point of view, I think they will probably try and stick to what they know and what they've done so far. I can't imagine there will be a big change in what they've done so far. Obviously, they've not won a game yet in the Premier League, and they'll be desperate to do that in front of their own fans. And I think we've seen them against Liverpool come out with that high intensity, high pressurized set up off the ball in particular. And I think they did cause Liverpool some problems in that first half. It was the second half that I think Arne Slot switched things up a little bit. And I think there was a little bit of maybe a drop in energy from Ipswich's point of view in that second half. And then Liverpool were able to take advantage. But I'm in the same boat as you in terms of watching them in that Liverpool game and then only seeing highlights since. So it's difficult for me to say how they've adjusted. But from what I've seen of them, I think they are, in the Championship anyway, they were very much a possession-based team. And I think they would like to be that. But I do think they have altered slightly and have given themselves a little bit more in transition and are allowing their players to play in a slightly different way. I think Emery Hutchinson is great at picking up the ball on counter-attacks and carrying it into the opposition third. I think he's a really good buy for them in the summer. And Leif Davis on the left-hand side is very dangerous on transition as well. They look for him on counter-attacks to make inroads down the left-hand side. So they have got weapons to attack you on the break. But I do think they will try and unsettle Villa early on in that game. The question is, if Ipswich do manage to get in front, I think they may have only led for something like 17 minutes in the Premier League this season. Only Crystal Palace has led for fewer minutes in the Premier League. So it'd be interesting to see what they do once they go ahead, how they cope with that. Because as you say, Villa have done so well coming from behind in recent weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you answered my for Ipswich. I think they've had, out of all the newly promoted teams, I would say, and I think they've got a very, very good manager, very switched on manager. You're right, there has been that slight change in tact from the Championship, as you would expect. And in fairness, not all managers do that. Look at Southampton at the moment; they're very much trying to play in the same way that they did in the Championship, and it remains to be seen whether that's achievable. It was the same with Burnley last year as well. I think the true barometer of where they were, Ipswich, was Brighton away, getting a 0-0. I think that's a good sign for them. It shows they can go away from home and keep a clean sheet. And I would expect the next part of their game to come in terms of scoring goals, because I do think they've got a lot of armoury in their attacking positions. And I do think as the season goes on, they'll get better and they'll cause teams problems. But that showed, didn't it? That they're capable of being resolute. Teams have struggled against Brighton this season. That's a really top result, going there and getting something.
Yeah, and you mentioned the manager. I mean, in a different world, in a different scenario, Kieran McKenna could be the manager of Chelsea. His representative spoke to them in the summer. His representative spoke to Manchester United. He could have ended up at Old Trafford in another situation, in another scenario. So that shows how highly rated he is within football, Kieran McKenna. And I think and a lot of people said before the start of the season that, Ipswich will just stick to exactly how they played in the Championship and they'll get rolled over, and not forgetting they obviously had back-to-back promotions as well. So I think he is probably the most pragmatic out of all the managers of the top, outside of the coming up from the Championship into the Premier League, I should say. I think Russell Martin is quite stuck to how he wants to play. I think Cooper has shown in the past a little bit how he's able to change things, but I think he's working with a very, very difficult squad there at the moment. So I think from Kieran McKenna's point of view, and what I think anyway, he's probably the most pragmatic out of all three, or he's able to do things differently given the players that he's got. But I mean, if you're looking at standout players, I mentioned Hutchinson and Leif Davis, who I think Liam Delap is someone who will eventually score goals. I think he is someone who is getting in the right positions at the moment, but hasn't quite had that finishing touch. And I think he is one that Villa will need to absolutely keep their eye on, because he's another one who, when you look at him, he's got a little bit of everything. He's got a physical presence up there. He's able to battle in the air. He's able to run in the channels. He's able to come deep and link the play. And what we've seen in the past anyway is that he can finish. He's just waiting for the Premier League numbers to back that up. I think another player that I like, Jacob Greaves at the back. I think he was great for Hull. Absolute man mountain. And he's someone who is crucial for them in set pieces, both defensively and offensively. He wins a lot of first contacts in the penalty area because of his size and his ability to time his runs to head the ball. So I really like him, and I think he'll become a really solid Premier League player. So they do have talent, Ipswich. I'm looking forward to watching them against Villa on Sunday.
They also have an old Villa Championship man, Twanzebe. Played for Villa, obviously, in the Premier League as well, which you almost forget. Had a bit of a falling out with Steven Gerrard and left the first chance he got. Maybe it was a sign of things to come. Maybe Axel had scoped out what was coming under Steven Gerrard. But AVFC says they'd be good to see how he's progressed. He'll get a good reception from the Villa fans as someone who helped the club get promoted.
Yeah, definitely. I've only got great memories, really. I'm sure all Villa fans have got great memories of Axel Tuanzebe and how he helped Villa on their journey that they're still on at the moment. And for Ipswich, he has played this season in a kind of a hybrid, like right back, centre back role.
That's his best position doing that, I think.
I think so. I think he's one that things, the modern game as it is, I think he is someone who really thrives in that. Because of what he's able to do and the position he's able to play. He'll play right back, and when Ipswich are in settled possession in the middle of the field, he will slot in to make a three, a little bit similar structure to what Villa have done in the past. And then when Ipswich are deep in opposition territory, Tuanzebe will almost join the midfield a little bit and protect against counter-attacks from the middle of the pitch. So he's got an interesting role. And we know from what we've seen of him at Aston Villa, he's a very physical presence. He's good in 1v1s. He's got good pace as well. So whoever it is that plays down that left-hand side, maybe Jacob Ramsey, it's going to be a difficult afternoon for him. He'll be looking forward to taking on Ramsey if it is him at left wing.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of Villa's setup and Villa's system there, Dave. Be interesting to see what Villa do on Sunday with the Champions League game against Bayern looming on Wednesday. Is there a chance that we see John Duran start the Premier League game for the first time with the Bayern Munich game coming up on Wednesday? I was at TalkSport on Tuesday. Big name drop coming here. I was having a chat with former Villa striker Darren Bent, and he said to me, Duran is in the top 5 strikers in the Premier League right now. He would say, look at the strikers in the Premier League. He said Villa have got 2 of the top 5 strikers in the Premier League. It's going to be really difficult to keep him happy because he's going to want to play because he is that good. He then the next day went on to say that, are Villa going to look in certain games at playing 2 up top? With both those things that I've just said in mind and the fact that he seems to score every time he sets foot on the pitch, is Duran due a start on Sunday?
When you were talking about what Darren Bent was saying there, I was trying to think of other... I take it he means in the context of out and out number 9s.
Yeah, so
almost old fashioned centre forwards. You're not talking about false 9s or kind of forwards that play inside.
He said, I think it was Haaland, Watkins, Isak, Duran. I think he might have had Havertz in there as a forward. But even that's questionable whether he's an out and out number 9, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point though from Darren. I'm not sure you can argue too heavily against that. Maybe Solanke might want to get in there, but given form and availability this season, I think Duran is probably ahead of him at this stage. I think
he said it was Solanke last season would be in the top 5. That's what he said.
Yeah, Watkins and Duran have only been on the pitch twice together this season. 15 minutes against Everton, just short of half an hour against Wolves. Doesn't feel like we're on the cusp of them both starting together. I don't think, I think it might happen as the season goes on, but it doesn't feel to me like it's close that they will both play together. I think he has a good argument probably to start at the weekend, but I suspect it will be Watkins again. I would probably go with Watkins again to give him another hour or 70, 75 minutes. Then depending on how the game is going, maybe replace him with Duran or play them up front together, depending on how the game's going at that point. I think, someone like Ollie Watkins will want rhythm and want games ahead, particularly ahead of Bayern Munich. I think the same will be for Leon Bailey. I think he will start again at the weekend. But it's the more he scores and the more he impacts games and the more people talk about him in the media and the wider Premier League fans, I'm not just talking among Villa fans here, but the more he is talked about, the more outside noise there is around John Duran and maybe the more pressure or the more influence that has on him getting into the starting 11. There's no doubt there's been an improvement in his game over the summer. There's been an improvement by the looks of things in his attitude this season.
Definitely.
And I think that's only a positive for him. And I think from his point of view, arguably, probably is the best form of his career so far. So from his point of view, let's stay patient and the opportunities will come. And in the Champions League, there is no better opportunity than making an impact against Bayern Munich. Now, I suspect Ollie Watkins will start against Bayern Munich, but I think John Duran will probably come on in that game. And if he continues the way he's going, it's reminding me a little bit of when Harry Kane was trying to force his way into the Tottenham side and he kept coming off the bench, all different competitions, Europa League, League Cup and Premier League. He kept coming off the bench and scoring and kept coming off the bench and scoring. And at that point, there was a clamour for him to start games. And I think Tottenham did the right thing in kind of staying patient a little bit with him. But eventually there was no choice but to start him. And we all know what happened to Harry Kane now. Who knows what career trajectory John Duran is on? It's probably more up to him at this point, how he wants his career to go and the hard work that he's willing to put in order to get there. But some within Villa see him as a £100 million player. He's not a £100 million player right now. I think Ollie Watkins is ahead of him on that. So for him, he needs to stay patient, work hard. The goals will continue to come. And until he's able to make it an impossible choice, but to start him, I think he will remain almost the number 2, unless Emery sees there's an opportunity that they can play together. I think it will be a very specific game and a very specific point in the season that they will start together up front. But I can see it happening this season for sure.
Yeah, sorry, IVFC makes a good point in the chat. Leon was superb last season off the bench early on in the season, which is correct. We have Duran now too. Bailey did kind of kept doing as much as he could do to when he was coming off the bench, and then he eventually got that start and Diaby moved out the team against Man City and Bailey stayed in the team for the rest of the season when he's fit. There's a few difficulties with this because John Duran, based on what he's done so far this season, he probably does deserve to start. But then Ollie Watkins, based on the last 18 months, he deserves to start. Emery isn't going to abandon his system because that system has worked really well for 18 months, playing one up front with a number 10 and then another number 10 cutting in from wide as well. So that's really worked well. So Emery isn't just going to abandon his principles because we've got 2 centre forwards that are bang on form. So it is really, really difficult, Dave. He literally can't do any more to get into the team. Yeah, I'm still sat here thinking, well, Watkins should play over him. It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels really harsh, doesn't it, when you say it out loud like that? But you're right. The setup doesn't allow almost for those 2 big out and out centre forwards. So
it's also working him coming off the bench. So sometimes he's scoring goals when he's coming off the bench. You almost, well, let's leave him on the bench and keep bringing him on, and he'll keep scoring goals when defenses are tired. There's that element to it as well.
Yeah, and I think people will. I think the difference, I guess, in this situation than the Leon Bailey situation, you mentioned it there, was that Moussa Diaby was starting to struggle a little bit, and his form dipped as Leon Bailey went on the upward curve. The difference here is that Ollie Watkins, some people will point to the fact that he's probably had a slow start to the season, but he's now starting to come into form. I think he has missed more big chances than any other player. I think he's missed 7 big chances this season, 2 more than anybody else in the Premier League. But can you really say that his form has dropped off enough for John Duran to come in ahead of him? I don't think it has. So it's either going to be a dramatic drop off in form for Ollie Watkins, or, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but an injury to Ollie Watkins, that John Duran is going to get his chance from the start, unless there is a very specific game that Unai Emery has a game plan that requires 2 centre forwards for. I don't know when that will be, but I can't rule it out.
No, another man who's pushing, I think, is Ross Barkley. I wonder if he'll start this one again with Wednesday in mind, and maybe it's him and Tielemans or him and Onana. At some point, I'm not saying it's now, there will be changes and people sit out certain games because the volume of games will get too high. I'm not saying we're there now, but I think the players do have to get used to, well, yeah, if you're fit, you might not play every game now, however good you are, however important you are.
I think you're right. I think there are exceptions to that. There are players that I know that, I'm going to say this, but they didn't play against Wickham, did they? But there's your non-negotiables of Martinez, Konsa, probably Powell. Tielemans now probably is in that bracket, and Ollie Watkins. I know, obviously, there were gaps in that for the Wickham.
But they won't keep that level if they have to play every single game. I think we saw that at the end of last season.
Definitely.
Even if you start rotating now, there's a long-term benefit to doing that, and I think the squad's good enough to do that as well.
Oh, the squad is absolutely good enough to do that. I think Ross Barkley's been excellent as well, coming off the bench. Again, another player that you couldn't have asked any more of this season. I think he will either start this Premier League game or he will start the next Premier League game. And it seems another situation where it seems bizarre to say, given the form that Amadou Onana has shown at the start of this season, the goal scoring form, the fact that he's been such a hit with the supporters that, he could be dropping out this weekend for Ross Barkley. So I think all these players will play. They will all get minutes by the end of the season. It's just picking and choosing the right time, not to disrupt the rhythm, not to disrupt the flow of and the start to the season that Villa have. And I think if they win this weekend again, it's one of the best starts in Villa's history to a top division season. So Villa are on the right path. There's no almost players that you're looking at going, he could come out, he could do with a rest because he's dipping in form. And I think Villa have used very few players as well so far in this Premier League campaign. I think they've made one of maybe the second fewest starting 11 changes in the Premier League. I think they've used very few players as well in terms of different players coming off the bench. So, Emery has shown this season already that he has kind of got his first 11 and it's up to other people to maybe force their way in. Or, there's going to be games where there's just going to be one or two little tweaks for players to come in, like a Barkley. I don't think there's going to be games where he's going to change, say, 5 or 6.
No, I guess the only other question marks on the team selection against Maatsen is probably pushing for a start after his second half performance against Wolves. Although, will they play Dean in this one and play him against Bayern? Because he's got a lot of, to be fair, both of them have got Champions League experience, but Maatsen's got recent Champions League experience, and at home to Bayern feels like a game to him. Obviously, he played in Germany last season as well, Maatsen. So I'd expect to see Maatsen in at least one of these games. And Carlos pulled out in the warm-up on Tuesday against Wickham. So I guess the question mark is, does Konsa go back to centre-back and someone else play right back? They're the only other real question marks in the team, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think Luca Dean may have picked up a knock in the last game, so it depends how he comes up this week. Again, Carlos, it's a kind of have to wait and see. I mean, he's not the most reliable in fitness, and no. When he has picked up injuries, I'm only talking anecdotally here. I don't have the figures in front of me, but it doesn't feel like he only misses, or he's back for the next game, for instance. When he gets injured, it seems like it's 2-3 games minimum, really, that he misses. So you feel like he's going to be out. So the question again would be probably then Konsa playing centre back, and it's a pick 'em who he wants to go at right back. Obviously, Lamar Bogar's played there, Nedeljkovic has played there, and it's a question of how he sees the progression of those two players this weekend. I think whoever plays at right back, it's not going to be an easy afternoon, because they are going to have to track Leif Davis, and there's going to have to be communication with the back four as well. The rest of the back four around Smodic's movement, Hutchinson's movement as well. So it's not going to be an easy afternoon, whoever plays right back.
Yeah, I don't think. Emery hasn't had his press conference at the time of doing the show. I know Cash is doing everything he can to be fit for Wednesday against Bayern. I know he really wants to be fit for that one. He referenced it in an interview recently in America. He's doing everything he can. He looked on enviously in the first game, plays for his teammates against Young Boys, but said he wanted to be there when the Champions League anthem was playing. So he'll be doing everything he can for Wednesday night. So I think it might come too soon for him on Sunday, and it's probably too soon for Kamara and Mings to be making returns to the squad as well, I would say, over the next couple of games. But then after that, I think we'll start to see them involved as well. Let's finish then with the either hot, spicy take or the ice cold take, freezing cold take. Dave Reid, last week, Tails and myself both went close. Tails said that Rodgers would get off the mark for the season. He got 2 assists, so half marks for Tails there. I said, I can't even remember. I said we give a clean sheet, so I was miles off it. But I did say as well that Mosquera for Wolves would get a red card and go off. He did go off, but it wasn't a red card. It was an injury. So a little bit of credit there for me.
I can't believe you're taking that. I can't believe you're taking that.
Can you take a little bit of credit from that? I think I'm going to, Dave. What's your take for Sunday, Dave?
I mean, I always like to back a clean sheet, but I don't. We've not kept a clean sheet.
My clean sheet back in days
this season. Yeah, we've not kept a clean sheet yet this season in the Premier League. I think it's no clean sheet in the last 10 Premier League games. So I feel like Ipswich will score at the weekend. I think I went, last time I was on the preview anyway, I think I went for Barkley as a goal scorer. So
Freezing cold.
do I stick with that or do I change? I think I'm going to go with Leon Bailey to score at the weekend. Leon Bailey's going to get a goal.
Okay, I was unlucky as well because I've called us to get a penalty in a few games, and then obviously we get one for the game that I didn't do a preview for against Wickham. But I'm not sure Duran's the designated penalty taker. I think he was the penalty taker just for that game. What am I going to go with? I am going to go for. Oh, I don't know. I've not prepped. I've not thought about this. I'm going to keep it simple. John Duran to score again. I keep thinking he can't keep doing. I mean, this will be the end of it now with me calling it. But yeah, John Duran to keep scoring, to come on and get another goal for Villa at the weekend. I think I'll go for that. Right then, David, that does us. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Always a pleasure to see you conversing in the chat whilst we're doing the show. Thanks to those that have tuned in live and to those that will go on and watch and listen as well. I don't know why I bother saying this stuff at the end of the podcast every week, because no one ever does what I ask for. Please give the video a like if you've taken it in on YouTube, and subscribe with your post notifications on. And the one nobody ever does, the reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a nice review if you're enjoying the show. And I think you might be able to do the same thing on Spotify, but I don't use it. So if you could go on there and give stars or whatever it is they do over on Spotify, more sophisticated platform than I use, then go on and do that as well. We're back with a show. Maybe try and do one on Sunday after the game. I might try and make that happen. We'll see how my day goes. If not, it'll be Monday for the usual podcast. Those that are traveling to Ipswich, travel safe and bring back 3 points. Only one thing left to say, as always, up the Villa.